Coming to you live from Medellín Wellness Center here in Colombia. This is the Fredcast, and I am Fred Busch. Thank you for joining me on my inaugural episode. I'm very excited for this project. This is something that I've been obviously considering doing for quite a while. And I guess I've been afraid. I've been afraid that, maybe my voice is too radical or is too extreme, or maybe people get turned off when they start to get to know me a little bit better, as will naturally happen in a platform like this, and I start to get to speak basically from my heart about things that are important to me. But at the end of the day, I figure, let's just go for it. And if people are not resonating with the way I see the world, well, then that's fine. I mean, there's plenty of other approaches and other people's views and visions, and so of course everybody can find the teacher or find the voice that speaks to them the clearest, and maybe my voice will speak to some of you, and maybe it'll be helpful for you, and that's my goal. I'm not one to really waste my energy so much unless I think there's going to be a benefit. And in this case, the benefit would be, to help as many people as possible to feel better in their daily life, and to feel more well-being, and to feel less stress, and to feel, less pressure, and to be able to experience, the benefits that come from using awareness of a few things that I think that some people may or may not be aware of, or if they're aware of, maybe they're not aware of how important these things are. So that's what we're going to do. This is a podcast that is a plant-based podcast, naturally. I'm going to be speaking a lot about plant-based eating and all of the reasons behind it. This is a podcast that is about yoga and both the physiological aspects as well as the spiritual. This is a podcast that is going to be talking about the mind and awareness and meditation. This is a podcast where we're going to talk about, the benefits of rest and relaxation in our life, as well as organic living. And those things, those 5 things I just mentioned, are really what I call the 5 fundamental factors. And that is the basis of my new book, the Medellín Wellness Protocol. The 5 fundamental factors to strengthen your immune system. And I just think that at this point where we are in the planet these days, I don't know if anything is more timely or more important of a message than the one that will help everyone to get their immune system strong, so that we can all be as resilient as possible, for whatever will come to pass, as things unfold for us here on planet Earth. All right, so we're going to have a little structure to the show. Basically, every day I'm going to talk about, or every episode, whether that's every day or every week, it'll probably be a weekly episode. But every week on our episode, we're going to talk about the news, present news, something maybe that calls my attention, that I think we could all, learn or benefit from being aware of that. I want to tackle at least one of what I call the myths of nutrition. Certainly there are many of those myths of nutrition, things that people are, that an unusual number of people, believe, and that is just simply not true. So I just simply call that the myths of nutrition section here of our show. And I want to give usually a little coaching on what I call living enlightened. So, some little tip or some little hint or some little way of using the deeper spiritual teachings that might be esoteric, but getting them to be useful in your daily life in a practical way. So that will be our Living Enlightened section. Of course, every show I'm going to briefly mention some aspect of the Medellín Wellness Protocol, the five fundamental factors, some part of that or some chapter from the book, so that people can become, experts themselves in how to keep themselves healthy, keep themselves well, and to keep their immune system strong. And then every one of our podcasts is going to feature, this is inspired by my mom. When I was maybe I think 11 or 12 years old, my mom, she gave me a book, and that, in fact, this copy of the book, the exact copy that she gave me, when I must have been, what is that, 35 years ago. I still have this copy. It's in fact in front of me right now. And this book that I'm speaking about is called The Prophet. The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And so every episode I'm going to read a chapter of The Prophet, and perhaps I might speak about it. Perhaps it will just speak for itself. And so I think that as we go through and read and learn and absorb the power and the message that's in The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, I think that you will agree, along with me and many other people who know this book, that this may be one of the best books that has ever been written, possibly due to just the power, the depth, and the poetry of the work, and the mastery of Khalil Gibran. Okay, and and then at the end, if people start to send me some questions or some concerns they might have in their personal life or anything that I might be able to assist, then I'll have a small section dedicated each episode to questions and answers. Okay, so let's get started here. This is episode number 1, and the news that I wanted to talk about today was something that had just come out a couple days ago. And of course, what's everyone talking about nowadays? This is where 2021, we're in March, and we're in the middle of what? This, all of these different waves and the pandemic and the COVID and all of the vaccines. And, basically our news world is, of course, inundated by those subjects. So I'm going to just, stick right to that. And I'm going to read this headline that says that COVID deaths are high in countries with more overweight people. Okay. In fact, the other headlines are clear, and they say that it's really 10 times higher. Now, what it's saying is that countries that have low levels of overweight or obesity have much, much smaller rates of mortality from this COVID epidemic, as opposed to countries that have a higher rate of obesity or overweight. In fact, it is so stark that people are really starting to say, well, what is it really that we should be most concerned with? Are we should be most concerned with the COVID and the virus, or we really should be concerned with obesity and with all of the effects of having an entire population, or 3/4 of an entire country's population being obese and being overweight. Now, I don't have any judgment or any I happen to have a quick metabolism, and so obesity for me just never happened in my life. But it's just really a matter of luck, because the way I used to eat before I learned about the subject of diet, in 1998 or so. I easily could have been obese. I easily could have been overweight. I would eat lots of food that were high in calories, and so I mean, it could have been me, in any case, but at this point we have to agree, and we have to understand that this is not as simple as it seems. I mean, in countries where there's no obesity and where there's no or lower levels of obesity, the mortality rates are so low that it's almost like a non-issue. I mean, the mortality rate I think in Vietnam was 0.04 per 100,000 people. I mean, that's so low that I mean, that's almost statistically, similar to things that you don't even consider to be a threat. And so, what is my point here? My point is that, in the midst of all of us, as we are focused on getting vaccinated, and we're all focused on, wearing the masks, which I do. I wear a mask everywhere I go, and I am happy that people are getting vaccinated, and I'm happy that it's helping, get this world started off, back to its normal again. But we do have to understand that the normal of before was not okay. In fact, I don't know if it was normal. I think we could say what was happening commonly, but it wasn't really about normal, because it's not normal to have 75% of a country be either overweight or obese, because that's how it is in the United States. I think in the United States it's 45% or 45% is obese, and another 25% is overweight. And you put that together, and it's just a huge percentage of people that are living in a way that is not sustainable for their health. And then, something like this comes around, and it takes a really high toll. I mean, we're talking about 10 times the mortality rate in countries that have high rates of obesity, and high rates of being overweight. And of course, everything that I'm doing in my approach to helping people is, of course, helping people understand how to eat, how to relate to food, how to relate to exercise, and how to relate with the mind, and how to relate to rest. All of those things are weapons in prevention of obesity, and in the reversing of obesity, and in weight gain. Because at the end of the day, what is very clear by these articles, it says, look, about 2.2 million, okay? I mean, this is unbelievable. 2.2 million of the 2.5 million deaths from COVID were in countries with high levels of overweight people. Okay, that's 2.2 out of 2.5 million deaths were in countries where people are overweight or obese. So that speaks for itself, and so I am certainly, of course, with a very heavy open heart to everybody who is experiencing loss. I mean, 2.5 million people have died in the last, what is this, 13 months. Um, I mean, this is beyond a tragedy. And so I want to, give my condolences deep to everybody who is affected. And of course, my goal in doing a project like this podcast is to do anything that I can to prevent the continuation of the trends that are causing this kind of stuff in the first place. I mean, that is my goal. That is why I'm here, and that is hopefully what can happen from everybody learning a bit of information about how to eat, how to exercise, how to use their mind, how to rest, how to live more organically, and then they can implement that, and they can lose weight, and then they can feel better emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and then of course that's my goal. Okay, with what we say in Spain here, or in Spanish here in Colombia, we say, con la ayuda de Dios, with the help of God. That is the goal. Okay. All right. So now the next section here of our show is the myths of nutrition. Okay, I'm going to tackle a common myth of nutrition here with you today. Today, the myth that I think is important to tackle is the myth that seafood or that certain kinds of fish are healthy. Okay, the myth that there is a benefit to eating certain kinds of seafood. And I think that everyone will agree that that's a common belief system. I think that there's some understanding that not all types of seafood are good, and they have seemed to have classified certain fish as the good fish has the good fat, fish like salmon and things like that. And so that all is a myth that I'd like to tackle, this myth that there's a distinguishing factor between these things, between these types of fish, and also that there's any sort of distinguishing factor between flesh from a fish, or flesh from a cow, or flesh from a goat, or a chicken, or a pig. Okay, so this is a myth that has to get really, really handled, effectively, because so many people are believing that seafood is a good option for them, and then the oceans are just getting destroyed. The overfishing and the death nets, those ghost nets that are 10 miles long, and they get dragged down because of the dead carcass in the ocean. There's so much disaster that is coming from the seafood industry. Oh my gosh, I can go on and on, but and then, of course, what I always say is the fact that we're doing all of this damage, and we're doing all of these really terrifying things to other living beings, and then as a result, we're eating things that are not really designed for us in the first place. Okay, so fish, regardless of its salmon or any other kind of species, fish is full of, first of all, heavy metals. Okay, you're talking about the types of heavy metals that cause brain damage, that cause Alzheimer's, the mercuries, the leads, and the aluminums, and things that, because the oceans and the rivers, these are our sewage ways. This is where we put our waste, and this is where our industries dump their waste. And where we've done all our nuclear tests and done they're really just not as clean as you would hope, and so all the fish have that. Okay, fish are all full of parasites. Fish are, a lot of times they do have different kinds of radiations. Fish are living their entire life in an ocean, and that ocean is really not clean, and on different levels of not clean. I'm just talking about regular dirt. We're talking about kinds of poisons and chemicals and things that bioaccumulate and that really have no place in the human food chain. Of course, fish is putrefying like all other type of flesh foods, and we have no business eating fish. Look, if you're starving to death and you're off on an abandoned island, and okay, I understand that. You got to live, and yeah, you eat that fish raw, and you'll survive. I understand that. But, in this modern world, we are primates, and we're not made for fish. And so this is a huge myth. And everybody, if you are a fish eater and you believe that, I'm a vegetarian, I only eat fish, that's not in any way valid. And I invite you to take it to the next level, take it to what is the real level of eating like a human, and to get rid of this fish, get rid of this seafood stuff, for a few weeks or a month, and then see how you feel, and see the difference in your energy levels, see the difference in your digestion, see the difference in, but obviously more deeper than that is by avoiding this stuff. Okay, you're finally able to begin to prevent. And that's what I'm more interested in, is prevention, the development of certain, degradations of our health system, which come from eating things that we're not designed for, like fish, all seafood. It's all the same. It is none of it related to human dietary. Okay, so at some point, maybe do a little test with yourself, take a few weeks to be a scientist about it. Never take my word for anything I say. I am not interested in you believing me. I am not here to preach. I may have some pretty strong views, and I may be evangelical in some way, but at the end of the day, do not want you to take my word for it, and I am not looking for faith. I am looking just to kind of, give you some information. You take the information, and you either implement it or you don't. But my job is to make sure you have the information, and that you're not walking around ignorant like everybody else, who is, subject to the forces of misinformation about these subjects. Okay? Okay. Well, this is fun. I'm having fun. This is a great opportunity. I hope you're enjoying the show. Um, so now I wanted to talk just for a minute about living enlightened. The next section here of our show is a little tip on living enlightened, which means how do we take teachings that are from the text or that you've heard of, or that you've maybe heard quotes, and then how do you implement that into your daily life? All right. Well, today let's look at the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer is one of my favorite prayers in the English language, and I know it's in the Spanish language as well. And there's a corollary in yoga as well, a very similar teaching. And the Serenity Prayer, it goes like this. If you don't know it, it says, Lord. Well, this may be a paraphrase of it, but this is essentially it. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the strength to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. In fact, I think it's in the reverse order. I believe it's, Lord, grant me the strength to change the things I can, the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And, my gosh, if any teaching is to be applied in our life, it's this one. Okay? I mean, in our life, we are constantly involved in situations or in interactions whereby we have to know the difference between something that we can change because it's within the field of our ability to change it, or it's something that we have to accept and we have to allow that to just have been God's will, and we have to accept it and not resist it or fight against it. This skill to be able to recognize the difference between those two situations, in my opinion, may be one of the most important, valuable, powerful skills that we can have to navigate life. I mean, people, when I like to explain a little example of, all right, well, what's the difference? All right, well, let's talk about our physical appearance for a minute. We all are interested in our physical appearance. Our physiological appearance gets a lot of attention from us. We certainly, as a culture, we spend a lot of money on that. So let's look at that example, and this example will say all right. So in one case, a situation where I am overweight and I want to lose weight, and so as someone who is overweight and who wants to lose weight, if I really want to lose weight, and I really want to badly. This is not some physiological or hormonal underlying reason why I have such weight gain. Well, if I were to ask myself, or if I were to ask you, is that something that do I have the power to change that? Do I have the power to lose weight if I really wanted to? If I really wanted to, could I do it? And the answer is probably yes. In most cases, if you wanted it bad enough and you were disciplined enough and you did what you had to do, which is, or you did what you were able or got to do, the opportunity to do, you changed your diet a little bit or a lot, and you exercised more, and you got better rest, you did all these things, there's a very, very strong chance that you're going to lose weight. And so that might be something that you might want to get involved with. That might be something that you could choose. All right, I'm going to get involved in the effort of weight loss because that's something that I can accomplish if I wanted to. All right, so that's one situation where you're saying, God, give me the strength to change the things I can. And so you're saying there, God, give me the strength to employ these new patterns so that I can lose weight. Okay, well, but what if you weigh 5'4" and you want to weigh, you measure 5'4", but you want to measure 5'10". So, and you're already 30 years old. You're not 15, or you're not 13. Okay, so you're a 30-year-old and you're 5'4", and you wanna measure 5'8" or 5'10". Now, would that be the kind of effort you might want to get involved with? Would you want to spend a lot of time working on trying to get taller, for example? Would you want to spend a lot of energy reading about all the different ways that would you want to start, doing exercises? I mean, how much do you want to fight against something that's impossible because it's not within the subject of, or not within the field of your ability to change it? And so, in one situation, we're both talking about both situations are physiological. One, you could make a change, so you ask for the strength to change it. Two, you can't make a change, so what do? You ask for the serenity to accept it. In my case, if you've seen what I look like, you'll see that I don't have hair on the top of my head. I have shaved head. I lost my hair. My hairline has been bad since early in my life, in my early 20s. And I lost my hair in my early 20s, and I've been shaving my head ever since. So I accept that. I give thanks. I have the serenity to accept things I cannot change. I'm not going to fight against it. I'm not going to take Rogaine and all these chemicals or wear a tube. I'm not going to do anything to resist what has already happened and what is clearly something that is not within the realm of my ability to change it. At least not naturally. And of course, if it's not naturally, then I'm not necessarily going to do it. All right. And then, of course, the real power of this prayer is asking God for the wisdom to know the difference. All right. And that's the key. We're going to come up, we're going to be interacting, we're going to be involved in the world. And we need to know, is this something that I want to get involved with and I want to get my strength into and I want to work with, and because I see the goal and I see it's worthwhile, and then do it. And absolutely do it, and ask for strength from God. Or is it something that has already happened and I have to accept it as somebody passed away, or has some event unfolded already, and it cannot be reversed, and then it's at some point a matter of I'm going to have to accept it because I can't continue to live my life pretending that it didn't happen or resisting it or wishing it didn't happen. Okay, and so this is a great skill. It's a great prayer. It's called the Serenity Prayer. It's nice to print it up and put it on your wall, and it's really a really powerful way of seeing the world, so that you can start to focus on the positive things that can be changed with your will and with your intention, as opposed to the things that are truly out of the power of your ability to change it. All right, so we're coming to the part of our show where I'm just going to really kind of give an overview of the 5 fundamental factors of the Medellín Wellness Protocol. How do you strengthen your immune system? How do you keep your immune system strong? How do you stay young? How do you keep yourself at a healthy weight? How do you keep yourself vital? How do you keep your sexual capacities if you're a male? How do you do all the things that are goals for us as humans, physiologically speaking? In order to do that, you really have to understand that one-dimensional thinking doesn't work. This is, I think, one of the great weaknesses of the model of the modern Western, form of self-help, where it's just, let's talk about the mind and the psychology. And then there's others that are all about exercise. And then there's the whole people that are about nutrition. And then some people are talking about chemicals and all the ways to be organic and so, but none of them are, or at least not enough of them, are realizing that these things must, and I mean that, must interact with each other in order to create the positive feedback cycle, which is what really drives everybody in the direction of healing themselves. All right, and so what are the factors? And this is what we do here at Medellín Wellness Center. If you ever get the opportunity to come to the center here, I'm located here outside of Medellín, quite easy to get to. I consider it paradise. And so what are we doing? We're implementing these 5 factors, which is how do we eat? All right, well, the first step is how do we eat? Well, we're primates, so we want to eat plant-based. And we want to eat as much fruit as humanly possible. The more fruit you can eat, the better. Of course, we'll be talking on further podcasts about the myth of fruit and sugar and all these other myths, but eat as much fruit as you can. And the next factor is how do you exercise? Well, here at the center, we focus on yoga and hiking as our main forms of exercise, but all forms of exercise are good if you enjoy them and if it gets you to move your body and gets you to move your muscles and your lymphatic system. Swimming is a highly superior form of exercise. Yoga is, in my opinion, a highly superior form of exercise. But this is important stuff, all right? So how do you eat? How do you exercise? How do you use your mind? This third factor. The mind is not in isolation of the rest of the context. This is, I think, a weakness of psychology and psychiatry, is trying to focus on the mind without realizing that it's inside of a body. And if it's inside of a body, then it has to reflect to some degree the nature of the body. And so, as we approach, the mind and awareness and meditation, all of it comes together because the exercise and the food part of it all make it all really make sense. And all, like I said, becomes a feedback cycle, which means each factor makes the other factor stronger. All right, another factor that we focus on here and that you need to focus on in your daily life is rest. Okay, get enough sleep. Your immune system and your sleep and your rest levels of rest are completely related. If you want to basically depress your immune system, it's very easy to do that. Just deprive yourself of sleep, and it's automatic. You will lower your immune system, and everybody knows that. And so the opposite is true. Get enough rest, fortify yourself, take care of yourself, and guess what? You're gonna, really go a long way to giving your immune system what it needs to be at its top working condition. All right. Now, if you cannot get enough sleep at night, or you are doing an exhausting amount of work, or for any number of reasons, you are exhausted during the day, and you have the luxury and you are able to take a rest, well, then do it. It's better than coffee. It's better than stimulants. If you have kids and you have no choice and there's nothing you can do, and the idea of taking a nap is literally the funniest thing you've ever heard of. Like you can't laugh so hard at something so far-fetched from your world. Well, I first of all have compassion, and second of all say, okay, well then you must make sure you get enough sleep. You must go to sleep early enough, because if you cannot take a nap or some kind of a rest, a nap is best during the day, and you are truly exhausted, then of course, what are we using in order to get through that situation? We use coffee and we use other stimulants, and I understand. I mean, she's so tired. The brain just gets so tired at 3-4 o'clock. It's like, how do you do it? How do you keep your eyes open? Well, it's with coffee. But guess what? Office workers, maybe during lunch time, you can maybe take a little nap, little cat nap, a little 20-minute nap. So I suggest that, okay? Resting. The last factor, of our system here at the Medellín Wellness Center, and for you to implement your life, of course, the subject of my book, which should be available soon on Amazon, the Medellín Wellness Protocol, is live organically. We're poisoning ourselves. We're poisoning ourselves nonstop with deodorants and toothpastes and shampoos and fabric softeners and laundry detergents and the spray in the bathroom and the air freshener in the car, the stupid Christmas tree that you hang from your mirror. I mean, when I say this, literally the list never ends of chemicals that you or I or we are ingesting, not to mention the things that we can't help. We can't help exposure to a lot of chemicals. There's certain, you drive behind a truck and it's, and you're breathing in the exhaust. You can't help that. So, okay, that's the type of thing you accept. You can't help that. But what you can help is putting deodorant underneath your arm every day and poisoning yourself with aluminum. You can help that. You don't have to do that. Okay, there's organic versions of all of these products. Check them out. Okay, obviously with food, of course, if you can afford to eat more organic based food, do it. Conventional food though is fine. You just have to wash it. Conventional fruit is fine. You just got to wash it really well. But when I talk about organic living, I'm more interested in avoiding chemical exposure. Okay, because that to me is really a pernicious and ubiquitous thing where it's everywhere. And it's so everywhere that people seem to think it's okay that, the way these bathroom sprays, God, they really bother me, because they're literally poisoning us. And, you know, I don't know if you know this, but when it comes to the body and poisons, the smaller things are the worst. And other kinds of threats, the bear, the bigger the bear is, the worse the bear. A baby bear doesn't threaten you, a big bear does. But with chemicals, a big chemical doesn't really threaten you that much. Small chemicals really do. Because big chemicals, your body has a better way of filtering them out and discerning them. But these smaller chemicals, they wreak havoc. They go into places that are very difficult to get to. And then they damage because they're different vibrations, they're different chemistries, they're different frequencies, and they're very irritating. And this stuff means a lot. And you gotta do your best to whatever things you can change that are easy, well then change them because they're easy. And one thing that's easy to do is change out the kind of deodorant or to stop using bathroom sprays. That's easy to do. And guess what? It might even save you some money that you won't have to waste on certain types of products that are actually counterproductive in the first place. All right, everybody. So now comes the final section here of our show. If you're still sticking with us, I appreciate that. And I hope that this is being beneficial for you. And I just hope to keep getting better and better with these shows each week. And as I said, hopefully we can even do some questions and answers at some point. But this final section here, as I mentioned, is inspired by my mom. And she's just such an amazing person and so supportive of me my whole life. And but I don't know that there could have been a greater gift than this one that she gave to me when I was about 11 years old. This particular copy of The Prophet by Khalil Gibran that I have is the, as I said before, it is the copy that she gave me. This particular copy was published in 1956. So this is a very old edition, and you can smell it, and it smells so, an old book smells like, huh? For all of us who remember what old books smell like, it's like. All right, so I'm going to read this. This is going to be the longest section of the Prophet that I'm going to read, because after this, it's going to be one chapter at a time. And in the Prophet, each chapter is really only about a 1 page, or at the most 1.5 pages of reading. And so that will, of course, only take a couple of minutes for my other episodes. But see, this the first section, we could say almost the introduction section of the book, where it kind of tells you the story, but that leads up to the teachings. This is several pages. This might take a little while. Now, I don't think there's anything more worthwhile than listening to this and reading this book. So I hope you have a few extra minutes and you're willing to stick with me here for these few pages as I'm going to read the first, looks like 4 pages of The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And before I start, it is very possible that I could get emotional and then I could even cry and my voice could get a little shaky there. But I don't apologize for that. This book is very emotional for me as I've read it, over 100 times probably. Okay, here we go. The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Al-Mustafa, the chosen and the beloved, who was a dawn unto his own day, had waited 12 years in the city of Orphalese for his ship that was to return and bear him back to the isle of his birth. And in the 12th year, on the 7th day of Elul, in the month of reaping, he climbed the hill without the city walls and looked seaward, and he beheld his ship coming in the mist. Then the gates of his heart were flung open, and his joy flew far over the sea, and he closed his eyes and prayed in the silences of his soul. But as he descended the hill, a sadness came upon him, as he thought in his heart, how shall I go in peace and without sorrow? Nay, not without a wound in the spirit shall I leave this city. Long were the days of pain I spent within its walls, and long were the nights of aloneness. And who can depart from his pain and his aloneness without regret? Too many fragments of the Spirit I have scattered in these streets, and too many are the children of my longing that walk naked among these hills, and I cannot withdraw from them without a burden and an ache. It is not a garment I cast off this day, but a skin that I tear with my own hands. Nor is it a thought I leave behind me, but a heart made sweet with hunger and with thirst. Yet I cannot tarry longer. The sea that calls all things unto her calls me, and I must embark. For to stay, though the hours burn in the night, is to freeze and crystallize and be bound in a mold. Fain would I take with me all that is here, but how shall I? A voice cannot carry the tongue and the lips that gave it wings. Alone must it seek the ether. And alone and without his nest shall the eagle fly across the sun. Now, when he reached the foot of the hill, he turned again towards the sea and saw his ship approaching the harbor, and upon her prow the mariners, the men of his own land. And his soul cried out to them, and he said, Sons of my ancient mother, you riders of the tides, how often have you sailed in my dreams, and now you come in my awakening, which is my deeper dream. Ready am I to go, and my eagerness with sails full set awaits the wind. Only another breath will I breathe in this still air, only another loving look cast backward. And then I shall stand among you, a seafarer among seafarers, and you, vast sea, sleepless mother, who alone are peace and freedom to the river and the stream. Only another winding will this stream make, only another murmur in this glade. And then I shall come to you, a boundless drop to a boundless ocean. And as he walked, he saw from afar men and women leaving their fields and their vineyards and hastening towards the city gates. And he heard their voices calling his name and shouting from field to field, telling one another of the coming of his ship. And he said to himself, Shall the day of parting be the day of gathering? And shall it be said that my eve was in truth my dawn? And what shall I give unto him who has left his plough in mid-furrow, or to him who has stopped the wheel of his winepress? Shall my heart become a tree heavy laden with fruit, that I may gather and give unto them? And shall my desires flow like a fountain, that I may fill their cups? Am I a harp, that the hand of the mighty may touch me, or a flute, that his breath may pass through me? A seeker of silences am I, And what treasure have I found in silences that I may dispense with confidence? If this is my day of harvest, in what fields have I sowed the seed, and in what unremembered seasons? If this indeed be the hour in which I lift up my lantern, it is not my flame that shall burn therein. Empty and dark shall I raise my lantern, and the guardian of the night shall fill it with oil, and he shall light it also. These things he said in words, but much in his heart remained unsaid, for he himself could not speak his deeper secret. And when he entered into the city, all the people came to meet him, and they were crying out to him as if with one voice. And the elders of the city stood forth and said, "Go not away from us. A noontide have you been in our twilight, and your youth has given us dreams to dream. No stranger are you among us, nor a guest, but our son and our dearly beloved. Suffer not yet our eyes to hunger for your face." And the priests and priestesses said unto him, "Let not the waves of the sea separate us now, and the years you have spent in our midst become a memory. You have walked amongst us a spirit, and your shadow has been a light upon our faces. Much have we loved you, but speechless was our love, and with veils has it been veiled. Yet now it cries aloud unto you, and would stand revealed before you. And ever has it been that love knows not its own depths until the hour of separation." And others came also and entreated him, but he answered them not. He only bent his head, and those who stood near saw his tears falling upon his breast. And he and the people proceeded towards the great square before the temple. And there came out of the sanctuary a woman whose name was Almitra, and she was a seeress. And he looked upon her with exceeding tenderness, for it was she who had first sought and believed in him when he had been but a day in their city. And she hailed him, saying, "Prophet of God, in quest of the uttermost, long have you searched the distances for your ship, and now your ship has come, and you must needs go. Deep is your longing for the land of your memories and the dwelling place of your greatest desires. For our love would not bind you, nor our needs hold you. Yet this we ask, ere you leave us, that you speak to us and give us your truth, and we will give it unto our children, and they unto their children, and it shall not perish. In your aloneness you have watched with our days, and in your wakefulness you have listened to the weeping and laughter of our sleep. Now, therefore, disclose us to ourselves, and tell us that has been shown to you of that which is between birth and death." And he answered, "People of Orphalese, of what can I speak save of that which is even now moving within your souls?" Then Almitra said, "Speak to us of love." And the chapter of Speak to Us on Love will be on our episode 2. And from now on, every episode here of the Fredcast will be featuring a chapter, a section from this master book, I Am Already Crying, as maybe you have heard, the Khalil Gibran masterpiece called The Prophet. And I think that it may be one of the most important and valuable literary works of all time. All right, everybody. So thank you for listening. If you made it through this first episode of the Fredcast, I am Fred Busch. I am here at Medellín Wellness Center, and I would love to hear your questions. I'd love to help you individually. So feel free to send me an email to my name, Fred Busch, That's FREDPUSCH at miamiyoga.com, and that will get to me directly. And then, of course, on the website and on the link, you can get to my WhatsApp as well, and check out all the different ways that I can assist you, and please allow me to do so. All right, so signing off from episode number 1 of the Fredcast, and hope you all have a great day or a great evening. And as always, all of my love and namaste.